A little bit about me real quick. I won't get too much in the weeds, but I've been a part of NCHA since 2004. I'm a judge, I'm a breeder, I'm a competitor, and I'm a stallion owner. I have radioactive. I've served on numerous committees, 4 years on the Vice President-elect committee. I chaired it twice. I was part of appointed to hiring the director of judges. I'm on the amateur committee now, and as Rock said, I'm on the executive committee, and I've served on 4 or 5 other committees, and I'm not going to get into that, but I am a director of Arkansas also. Okay, question, weekends versus the age event distribution of the funds. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
You know, to me there needs to be a balance, and I think you grow NCHA from the bottom up, and if we start trying to grow from the top up, we're not going to get anywhere. And I want to tell you, the places that this place is where I started, and this helped me get to the futurity and make the non-pro finals. And we have to protect these weekend shows. They're the backbone of what we're doing. And yes, I think the differentiation of that is off base, and we need to fix it, and it's a problem, and it's something I'm hearing a lot of, and that's a very good question. I think that the problem we're having is you guys, I'm hearing a lot of feedback, and it's good feedback, about what we need to do to take care of our customers, members, which are the owners of NCHA, nonprofit. And we're not doing our best job because we're not getting this feedback. This feedback that you guys are giving us directs the ship in which way we need this ship to go. And we do that by reviews. We need you guys through Hub, we need to build a support that when y'all have a problem, y'all are sending that to the office. We see that problem, and it's thrown at us enough, we have to address it and we have to fix it. I'm in the jewelry business. I've been doing it 40 years, and I have a couple of stores. And everybody that walks in my door, for one, my employees know that it's no different than them coming in my house. They're a guest. We treat them with the ultimate hospitality. The second thing is when they leave, they get a Google review. How do we treat you? Is there something we could have done better? And these are things that we don't know that we're not doing, and that's the problem with NCHA and our membership is communication. And we've got to do a better job at that, and that's something that I do every day that I can bring in to NCHA, and you guys will have a bigger voice and we'll know what these problems are, and we can address them and we can fix them, not 2 years later, but quickly. So, get rid of the rollback rule and build it from the bottom up. The ladder's broken is the question that I just got. I'm getting a lot of, that's a hot topic, the rollback, and the Hall of Famers won't be in it next year because that's going to be eliminated, and that was an oversight when this was all put together. The rollback needs to go back to the amateur committee and the committees that are affected and involved in this, and it needs to be really looked at to see what can we do better to protect the amateurs, and we can do that. But I think what we have to do first is send it back to the committees, and I'm on the amateur committee, and I don't mind taking it to the amateur committee and saying, and Barney, we got a great chair of the amateur committee, we got a good crew, and a lot of times when you implement new things, things come out of them that we've got to tweak and we need to change, and there are some changes, and we're slowly making them, and Hall of Famers, moving them out of there next year is a good step in the right direction. But I can guarantee you, I'm on that amateur committee, and the amateurs are screaming loud and clear, and I want to tell you, the amateurs are the backbone of our business. They're the ones that are paying a lot of the bills. They're the ones that are paying these trainers to go down the road, and if we don't take care of those amateurs, NCHA doesn't succeed. I can tell you, whether I get elected or not, I want to get elected, I will work on that, I promise you that. And it'll be my first phone call when I leave here with Barney, our chairman, to try to get our amateur committee back together and start working on this. But anyway, I understand your frustration, and loud and clear, and there's a lot of people that are feel the same way. So thank you for expressing that. We will not cancel the Eastern and Western. They're important, and we will fight hard to make sure that we keep those going, because I know they're important to the people that don't go to the Super Stage Derby or Futurity. So we'll fight hard to have them. But the question you asked, we may not have been asking that question if we had some feedback going into Hub from our membership on the West Coast. Where do we need to have this show? We need to have it here. It's not where it needs to be, and maybe we wouldn't be sitting in this position right now. It's about communication and transparency, and we have not been good at that. And when you're good at that, we don't have these problems, and we're not. And we have, you know, I've sent some stuff out there on some email blasts. I don't know if y'all have read them, but I'm on many boards, and I'm president of some boards, and I'm chairman of some boards, and we don't do a lot of things like we're supposed to do at NCHA, and that's what gets us in trouble. But when you start having your minutes provided it doesn't have how people voted on the EC, I've got a big problem with that. I want to vote, and I want you to know how I voted to where you can hold me accountable for it. And if I'm talking to my region and our members, and I feel pretty confident that I'm making that vote, I want my name on it. But we don't, and we're going to change that. Rock, I don't know why that's not on there, but that's got to be changed. When we go to these EC meetings, these agendas need to be sent to the directors. Is anybody a director here? Got directors. You directors need to know what we're going to be looking at, what we're going to be voting on, and call me, call your executive committee, region executive committees, and say, hey, Rock, what's the deal here? I know y'all are voting on that. That's not what we want. We got a problem. We got this. We got that. And you talk about it, and that gives Rock or me or whoever good talking points. But we're not doing that, and we've got to do that. So there's a lot of things that we're not doing that we need to be doing. And if we are doing, we got great rules and we got great processes. But when we're running things through committees, but it's only going to the non-pro committee, and it affects the amateur committee, and it doesn't go to the amateur committee, and then we get it to vote on, it hadn't been vetted out, and then we vote on it, and then we get this uprising that wants it off, then we take it off. So we've got to do a better job, and that's part of what, like I said, if I get in there or not, we're going to work hard to do is transparency, communicate with our membership, because we birthed a couple of other entities out of NCHA by not being good communicators, and they're out running around stealing our customers. Not stealing our customers, I have respect for Chris and United, but they're doing things a little bit different, and they're listening to their customers, and we got to do a better job of that.
Frustrating for my members, because when I look at them and they ask me these questions, I don't have an answer for them, other than they're taking 8% of our money, and you can put the little sticker, if you want, in the back of your window that says NCHA member. But I don't see a value. I'm not seeing a value that's coming from it.
Well, for one, it goes back to communication, which we're not doing. The second is what value, and I was asked that by Polygon. She sent me a screenshot of what they had to pay after her big show, and she said, I don't feel like NCHA we're getting the value out of what we're paying. And I agree. You aren't getting the value out of what we're paying, and we've got to do a better job of looking at all the affiliates. What do you need? What support you need? What problems are you having? And that all goes through what I talked about, sending a review out, sending a quarterly out, or having just a conduit built into Hub that we're constantly looking at this feedback and helping these affiliates. You know, and to me, take the 8 regions and take some sponsorship money and give to each region and let them use it to help prop these shows up. And I think we need to let you guys know, what is this 8%? You know, Jim, you made that comment. What is this 8% getting us? Well, heck, I can't answer that question. You know, I do know the value is in protecting these shows and protecting people from being on top of you. I do know also that NCHA horse earnings are more prevalent than other earnings, and somebody said, well, Ecostat has it. Well, they don't anymore. We took it away from them. And so, to me, and hospitality is another thing you said, and I get that. It's kind of like you tend to forget the price of something when you have a good experience. You go to a steakhouse, you look at the menu, and you're like, my gosh, this is expensive. But you have the chef come over, the waitress come over 3 or 4 times, they really talk it up, the food is great, and next thing you know, it didn't really feel like it's very expensive. Well, that's not what we're getting, and I get it, and I understand it. And as far as a voice, and you say that I'm one voice and I'm trying to make a change, you know what, I am one voice. But if we don't try, we're never going to have the opportunity to try to get where we need to be. But I want to tell you, we do have a super executive committee team, and we've got a great executive director. So I feel like the decisions and the voice and what I'm saying, people are listening on the executive committee, and they're liking it. And they're liking where we're going. They're not liking that we're getting ourselves in a mess all the time because we're not following the rules. And I had a CEO of a Fortune 500 company tell me one time, we were growing this nonprofit, and he asked me to take over as president of the board, and I did. And in 2 years, we grew at 40%. These things that I'm talking about, we changed. And I want to tell you something. We lost a couple of members, but we gained 40%. It was a fraternity club that was running everything, and we had to break it up. We had to make it about everybody. And as I said, the NCHA is owned by everybody. And we are the stewards of your money. And you ought to hold us accountable for it. And I get it. I hold my managers accountable for staying with budget and for 10% growth every year. If they don't hit it, we got a problem. And we went 16,000 members, we have 10,000. We're doing something wrong. And we know what insanity is, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, and we got to change it. And we will change it, for sure. And I will work as hard as I possibly can. I have pretty thick skin, and working with Rock and some of these others, they want to make those changes. They want to follow the rules, and we can get it done. Well, and I want to tell you something, traveling around like I have, we need to be able to do that. If we're not doing, if the vice president, president can't do this, then we don't need to do the job, because I'm getting more feedback on these calls and going around talking to people than I am sitting on that EC. And so that should be a job requirement. And if I'm elected or not, I am going to travel around, because you guys are the hard blood and sweat of this organization. And I love NCHA, and I've met some of my best friends through NCHA, and I want to see it succeed. I have the time that it's going to take, and Rob knows that. He's on the phone all the time. He could probably train 3 more horses in the time that he's having to spend on these calls and what we're doing. I could probably open a couple more businesses, but it means enough to me to not do that and be a part of NCHA and growing it and meeting great people like you guys.
For us as members, how can we communicate to the upper people that are controlling the rules and stuff?
Well, for one, the first line of defense would be your director in your area. Talking to him, expressing your viewpoints and how you need help. And then your director can go to the EC, or you can go directly. Rock would be fine if you go direct to him, but talk to your director, go to your EC representative for your region, and that can usually get it done. The problem we have with our directors is the directors don't know what they need to know. If you don't know this, the directors are our bosses. The directors can take the EC out at any time they want to, and they maybe should have already done it. But anyway, that's another story. So directors need to be more educated, communicate more, and then the directors can communicate it more to the members in their area, and then we have less confusion. But it goes back to communication, and that's a good point. But what I would like to do is have a direct piece of conduit that goes direct to the office. And anytime you have a problem or you have a suggestion or what have you, it immediately goes to the office. And there's somebody there monitoring all of our memberships. As I said, I do it every day, and I look at all the feedback that I'm getting with my companies, and I move the ship in whatever direction I need to move, and that's based on my customers. Because I know without my customers, I don't have a business. So I have to listen to them, and that's how I grow my business. So anyway, very good question.
Thank you, sir.
You know, the judging is the most important part of NCHA. If we get that wrong, we're in big trouble. Rock's a judge, and I'm a judge. I've been a judge since 2014. I'm sure Rock's been a judge a lot longer than that. But to me, majority of the judges want to do right, but I don't think if the judge are getting the training that they need, sometimes maybe we veer off, including myself. I've always been told, give me 6 hours to chop a tree down, and I'll spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. So I think our director of judges has one hand tied behind his back. We need money in an account that does nothing but supports and trains our judges, not every other year, but every quarter, that we have to do things. I'm honored to be an NCHA judge, and I think that a lot of times we set ourselves up by failure by not getting the proper training. So I think that what we ought to do is have a fund set up that gives us money, because I've heard for years, you know, we can't do this, can't do that because we don't have the money to train the judges. Well, why don't we? I mean, to me, this is the one thing that could run our whole industry is our judging. But we got to realize too, human error is involved, and we're not going to be perfect, but we need to be 95, 98% accurate in what we're doing. And but it's a good question. It's something brought up a lot, but I do think our director of judges does have one hand tied behind his back. We need, and I talked to him the other day about, we need to have things out on the website. Pete's tip of the week. This is what we're looking for. This is what we're doing. And for him to communicate more with our membership on, this is what I'm training my judges for. This is what I want to do. Because we're getting that feedback. But if y'all aren't getting that feedback, then it doesn't help y'all get better. And y'all ought to be able to look at that scorecard without looking at your video and know exactly what you did wrong. And they're working with that to make sure that we're, you know, taking care of that. But I think that most of the judges overall want to do right, but if we're not getting the training we need, my employees in my business, mandatory 2 hours a week of training. And we use that training, and we use our customer to tell us what training we need. So y'all make sure that everybody thinks that if I have a problem with a judge, it costs me, what is it, Rob, $400 or $500 to send in a complaint, $200. Well, there's an evaluation report that doesn't cost anything, and you send it in. And if everybody would send that in with a problem, that would tell our directors and judges where we're having a problem. Because if he sees something really consistent, then he can go in and he can say, hey judges, he sent us out something the other day. Hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z a little bit better. So that is something that's very important. That's a good question. And actually, we've been talking about things to do. It was at our last meeting. So we're on on top of it, and I understand. Well, the question is, what separates me from my competitor? What you guys, I think, need is somebody that runs businesses, and that's what I do every day. And as I sent out on an email blast to kind of be funny, don't send me a horse if you want to train, because I like to ride a horse and I can show a horse, but I can't train a horse. But what I do every day is I run businesses, and I'm on several boards now, and if you go to our website, you can see that. So what you're wanting is, like I said, something I do every day. As far as visionary, and that's what I think your vice president needs to be, not day-to-day operations, but support of your executive director. And visionary would be putting metrics in place for communication, data feedback, Google reviews, whatever we need to do to see what our membership wants, and for everybody, not for one particular area in the country, for everybody. And so that's what I would work on, is transparency, communication. And I tell you something else I want to do. I'm all about what can I do for my customers in my job every day. What can I do better? What can I give back? And this is something I do every day. Most companies are doing it, is a rewards program. And it's something that I want to implement. So anybody that has an NCHA member that has an NCHA card, they have a rewards card. And so any money you spend at this cutting or anywhere you go, you get 3%, I get 5% back. And let me tell you something, the retention I have over that and having those customers come back to me, and not only that is sponsorship. We've lost a lot of sponsorship. And you know why we lost sponsorship? Because they come back and they say, well, you want another X amount of dollars? Well, what have you done for me? Well, we don't have anything to show them that anybody's spending money with them. For hypothetically Love's, we want to renew that contract. Why should they renew it with us? They don't know that anybody's got any gas from Love's. But if we put money on that card, they go to Love's and they get gas, they see that they're spending money there, maybe they give us more money, or it's better retention. And not only that is, if you're trying to get a sponsor, then you've got a little more to give them when you say, hey, they can use this money towards you guys, so you're going to get money back. So those are low-hanging no-brainers that we can do, that I want to implement, that gives back to you guys. And I guarantee you, the sponsorship that we'll retain and we'll get by doing that will pay for it 10 times over. Guarantee you that, because it's working all across the country. Okay, Rock, good question. Rock's question, amateur is doing really well, and the non-pro is kind of falling back. And I tell you, it is. I went to several of these non-pro shows, and there's not a lot of entries, and it's sad. And, you know, we've talked about they talked about, I wasn't a part of this, but collapsing the amateur and the non-pro, which to me, you know, and I've said this 1,000 times, you don't take something that's really good, mix it with something that's struggling to make something good. You got probably some average or less than average. So what we need to do is fix the non-pro class. And I, you know, thought about it, and I talked to a lot of people smarter than me, and we got to find a way to fix this non-pro. How do we do it without tampering with that amateur and just keep growing that amateur? And what we came up with is just say $20,000 and let's put it in the non-pro class. And that's not for non-pros, that's only for amateur. That's amateur money. But the key for an amateur, the key to this, the trick to get that money is you have to buy an entry into the non-pro to be a part of that. Say you paid 5 places, you got $20,000 put in the non-pro, it's only money for the amateur, you pay 5 places, you don't have to make finals. Top 5, you all just blow out the first go, pays the top 5. So, you know, to me, you're incentivizing some amateurs to get into the non-pro class to try to get that money. And you could you put more jackpot money in there for the non-pros because you're building the entries up, and then you also have a chance of potentially making the semifinals or the finals to get that premium money. So the non-pros are getting some extra jackpotted money through those entries, and then the amateurs are in there trying to get that top 5 money. So to me, that is a good way to try to build the non-pro up, but it's no forced. I would never ever force any class into another, merge it with another class, or force somebody to buy an entry just to get into this class. So it's not forced, it's strictly voluntary. If I want to get in it, you can. So to me, I've pitched that to amateurs. They really like it, and I've had some pretty big time non-pros email me and really like that also. So I think that's something that I threw out there, and I want opinions on it. How do we tweak it? Is that what we need to do? How can we make it better? So anyway, good question, Rob.
What are you seeing are the issues that the NCHA is dealing with in this whole non-pro amateur situation?
Well, you know, everybody, the non-pro amateur, you know, everybody wants what they want, and I get it. I want what I want. But what we have to do as an association is we're not going to make everybody happy, and I get that, but if we should be able to make 90% of our membership happy. And I can tell you that 10% is going to sound like 90% because they're going to scream the loudest. But when we're communicating with our membership, we know what the majority of them wants to do, and that's the decision we make. Not somebody that you start having agendas, and somebody asked me, they said, you know, every vice president that comes in, they have an agenda. There's something they're going to do, and I said, well, I guess in my agenda would be communication, transparency. I don't have anything other than that, but communicate with our members better and propping up these weekend shows, which is the backbone, and continue to grow the amateur and fix the non-pro and some of these other issues we're having. But to me, that gets us where we need to be. And like I said, communication. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, you know, what you do, and this is when I was dealing with this nonprofit we were trying to grow, he said, let me give you some advice. And he's on a lot of boards and different committees. He said, you communicate to the point that your members go, we haven't done that yet? I thought we already did that. But we do it, or we don't do it, and we're like, when did you do that? Why'd you do it? That's what gets us in trouble. So we've got to, anything that we do or we want to do, we communicate it to the point where you guys know what's going on, and we're not getting our head bit off because we missed a step by running it by one committee that tried to fast track something, and it affected this other class, and we didn't run it by this other committee. And that's what happened in the amateur non-pro when they were trying to collapse it. Is it got run through the non-pro committee, but the amateur committee, they were told of it, but they never got to vote on it, and they would have never voted for that to happen. It went to the EC, they passed it, and then we had it was a mess, and they went back and reversed it. So if it would have went through the proper committees, we never would have had that problem. So communication, back to that.